Bradley got off work a little early today. He saw his wife fixing her messy clothes in the car. Bradley noticed something wrong and hurried over. He grabbed his wife around her neck. A big red hickey appeared in front of his eyes. Bradley instantly felt that he was the man with the longest horn. He took his wife's cell phone. As expected, he learned about her adultery. Bradley threw the phone away angrily. His wife ran back to the room in shame. Bradley stood still, feeling 100 knives pierce through him. Punch after punch, he hit the glass. Even so, his anger hadn't been released completely. But I have to admit that he was a real gentleman. He didn't vent his anger to his wife. He went back to the house to talk to his wife. Bradley asked his wife how long her adultery had been. His wife admitted, less than 3 months. Because you go out early and return late every day for the past 3 months. Every time, you go home after I fall asleep. I thought you have a side piece. Bradley interrupted, no, I've been working out, so. Although unfortunate things had happened, they still had to continue their life. Bradley said they should start over, having a baby, fulfilling their life. But this happiness was based on money. Now Bradley had been dismissed and his wife had no job. In desperation, he had to take risks. He returned to his illegal business, helping his former boss, Gil, deliver drugs. With a cautious and astute character, Bradley's work was going well. Soon after that, he was able to buy a luxury car and a fancy house. His status got up rapidly. His wife was pregnant. Her delivery was due in 4 months. Bradley's boss accepted a huge deal. He wanted to buy $3 billion goods from Eliezer. Due to a large number of drugs in this transaction, Gil needed a cautious member, someone with a flexible mind to get the goods. So he sent Bradley to take the goods. Eliezer sent 2 of his fellow men to spy on Bradley the whole process. On a dark and windy night, the 3 of them sailed to the appointed place. They picked up the goods from the water. On the way back, Bradley sensed that they were walking into a police trap, so he immediately threw the goods into the water. He asked 2 gangsters to throw the goods away, but they didn't listen and attacked him. As a result, the police quickly surrounded the scene as soon as they got off the boat. Bradley watched them from afar. He didn't want to wade in this mud, so he intended to leave quietly. But he didn't expect those 2 gangsters were not mediocre at all. An outburst of their guns blew up the police. At this time, Bradley thought of his wife and his upcoming daughter. He didn't want his wife and daughter to be hurt. So he turned back and helped the police kill 2 gangsters. Bradley was also caught. The police officer thought Bradley was not a bad man. He wanted Bradley to be a witness. Bradley didn't want his wife and daughter to be put at risk, so he chose to maintain silence. Eventually, the fate of being imprisoned was inevitable. He took off his size 45 shoes, turning back to the guard who was unprepared, putting his shoe into the guard's mouth. Bradley was sentenced to 7 years in prison for helping the boss sell drugs. He didn't turn his back to Gil, but Gil tried to kidnap his wife. They asked Bradley to enter a high-level prison called Redleaf, assassinating a traitor named Christopher. If Bradley refused, they would do an operation to take his daughter's limbs out of his wife, then let her give birth like nothing happened. And the only way to get into Redleaf was to attack the prison guard. He was afraid it was not enough. He knocked down 2 more guards on the way downstairs. A prison guard used a spray bottle and a baton, finally knocking him down. Bradley was successfully imprisoned in Redleaf for a year. The warden heard that Bradley injured many prison guards. When they met, he gave Bradley a blow, dumping all his personal belongings and giving him a physical examination in public, putting him in the worst cell in the country. It was dark and humid here. It was worse than a toilet. Bradley took off his shirt and used it as a mask to cover his nose and lied down. It was not easy for him to be allowed to go outside. Bradley seized the opportunity, asking for Christopher's information from the inmates. The inmate told him he hadn't heard of that name. Then after a while, he told Bradley Christopher might be imprisoned in cell lock 99. See, cell lock 99 was the hell of this prison. All serious criminals were imprisoned there. Normal inmates couldn't get in there. There was no way. Bradley could only continue to attack some of the guards. He came to a group of inmates, deliberately picking on them. Hey, weak cunts. Are you virgins or getting stuffed in the ass already? Seeing that word was not enough, Bradley deliberately pushed the man to the ground. Then he knocked down some of his crew. Even the prison guards who came to stop them were punched in the face. At this time, the warden came to stop Bradley. He was sent to cell lock 99. Then he was taken to a room full of torture equipment. An electric shock belt was fastened around his waist. They just needed to press the button. Bradley was shocked and fell to the ground. After testing the effect of the belt, they put Bradley in one of the cells. The ground was covered with fragments. The warden wanted to torture him again. Bradley was shocked and fell to his knees. The fragments on the ground pierced his knees painfully. After the warden left, Bradley stood up in pain. He must not fall for the sake of his wife and daughter. Through the gap, Bradley asked the inmate in the opposite cell for Christopher. But the inmate said he had never heard of a Christopher imprisoned here. At this time, Bradley realized that things were not so simple. The prisoner looked at his pregnant wife being tied to a chair. The kidnappers claimed to remove the limbs of the fetus from his wife's abdomen, then let the fetus be born normally. For the safety of his wife, he could only agree to the arrangement, coming to cell lock 99. Bradley was yelling loudly. He wanted to see this Christopher. The guard had to pull him out of the cell, taking him to the deepest part of the cell lock. The door opened. Unfortunately, inside of the cell were Eliezer and his fellow men. It turned out that one of the gangsters that day was not killed. And Eliezer was also imprisoned here. Bradley was led to cell lock 99 step by Eliezer. He wanted to end him here. Eliezer had the remote control of the electric shock belt, continuing to torture Bradley until he fainted. The next day, Bradley woke up. He decided to fight back and protect his wife and daughter. He pulled out the insole of his shoe and put it on his waist to reduce the pain caused by electric shock. When the guard pressed the remote control, Bradley's pain decreased significantly. He killed a guard while he was unprepared, ordering the other one to hand over the key. Then he unlocked the handcuffs and electric shock belt, coming to Eliezer's cell. Bradley first broke Eliezer's fellow man's spine. Then he threw him on the table. Just like that, he ended all of Eliezer's fellow men. At this time, Eliezer hurriedly called his fellow man outside and told him if he didn't hear anything from him in prison in an hour, he could kill Bradley's wife. But Bradley already knew how to end Eliezer. With his physical strength, he forced Eliezer to call his men. But Eliezer was still reluctant to follow his order. Bradley broke his thigh without saying a word. Under the punishment, Eliezer finally gave in, informing his men to release Bradley's wife and passing her to his friend to take care of. His friend was also a gangster. After Bradley's wife was released, he killed all of Eliezer's men. After receiving a call from his wife, Bradley was finally relieved. After killing Eliezer, he finally could breathe out a sigh of relief. But by this time he had killed 5 people, including 4 prisoners and a prison guard. He had completely embarked on the road of no return. Bradley held his head in his hands and meditated for 78 days. The day before his daughter was born, the warden raised his gun at Bradley. There was darkness after the gunshot. After watching the film, I was moved by the meaning of it. It is about a man's responsibility. His soft, cruel and humiliating side is reflected incisively and vividly. Though Bradley was finally killed, he didn't regret it because he did his best to be a real man, to complete the responsibility of a husband and a father. That's all for today. I'm Harry. I'll see you next time.